In this video, we get our own garden tour at Brodsworth Hall. Here's a little preview.
My name's Pete, I'm a volunteer here and welcome to Brodsworth. The tour lasts roughly an hour. First view of the house, it's rigidly symmetric. I mean, that particular statue is called Bacchanite with a bunch of grapes. This is a very typical Victorian bed.
Why does all of the statues look real?
Real. They're very good statues.
Think it looks real?
Yeah.
Basically early summer, the fountain. It will be running when we look back at this from the other end of the tour. I'm not a plant, so if you want to know what the plants are, you'll have to look at the blackboard.
Is this one real?
Yes, everything you see is real. This is where the family would have tea and scones.
It has a pet cemetery.
Somewhere.
Is this the parrot one?
No, parrot, Polly. Very long-lived parrot, but water level is the bottom there, stepping stones. Class and status symbols, because they're only seen by Western explorers. Yes. Plenty of space, single occupancy, but plenty of space if you've got a criminal. That's the end of the tour.
Stay tuned for the full video. We are on our way to Brodsworth Hall in Doncaster. We are nearly here. Some more signs we were getting closer. We are here now. This is the entrance. This is the car park. It looks quite busy. It's only closed at Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
Okay. There you go. Thank you very much.
The tour starts just up here. I'm not gonna do a lot of talking on this one because the tour guide does lots of talking. Check out our other video we did inside the house.
There it starts. Right, okay. My name's Pete, I'm a volunteer here and welcome to Brodsworth. The tour lasts roughly an hour. Can be quicker, can be shorter, depending on what you want.
Yeah.
And a bit of history. So is this your first time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, well, the church we heard strike is pre-Norman conquest, or it's got stonework from that. So that there's always been a manor house here. But the English heritage story starts in 1790 when a retired merchant banker called Peter Tellison bought the estate. And he died 6 years later, leaving a very peculiar will. Basically, he said his grandkids couldn't inherit, it had to be his great-grandkids. This took 60 years to resolve, by which time the Georgian Hall that was down the hill there had fallen into disrepair. So Charles Tellison, who finally inherited, he decided that he wanted to pull that down, build a nice new hall up on the hill here. He wanted to impress family, friends, most of all his family, because his wife and kids were down in Brighton, sorry.
Right.
And didn't see why moving to Yorkshire was a good idea.
Long way from...
Anyway, when he started, the only things remaining from the Georgian garden now is this lovely cedar tree here, the cedar of Lebanon, and a quarry which we'll get to later.
What do you say about Lebanon? There's
What do you say about Lebanon? The cedar of Lebanon?
Yes.
And that like on the flag to Lebanon, the sort of tree?
Yes, it is. That's where they come from.
That's what I thought then.
Yeah. So,
32%.
and so that's the only thing basically that remains of the old Georgian garden. Like all these stately homes, founded on family money, the money slowly runs out. This place was no exception. And it was exacerbated by the First World War, because after the First World War people didn't return to the land. So for nigh on 70 years this garden was not maintained. Just a bit of grass was mown. So when English Heritage took it over, then they realised that what you got here was an untouched Victorian garden. They're as rare as hen's teeth in the UK. So they took the decision that they would try and restore it to its peak. And that's the garden we're going to have a look at. But the restoration is still a work in progress.
Get your raisins if you want, Logan.
Raisins. What about gingerbread?
Yeah, get whichever one you want.
So,
Gingerbread.
How old's the tree then? It's a couple hundred years or something.
300.
300?
300 to 350. A lot of them were planted when the Georgian houses were built.
What are things on it? Acorns or something?
They're the cones. That's a cedar, so the cones go upwards. If you look at a pine tree, the cones go down.
Don't think I've ever seen them before. Are they quite rare trees of it?
Not in stately homes. They have quite a few because they were planted around the time of the Napoleonic Wars. Anyway, a lot of them were planted about 1700. First view of the house, it's rigidly symmetric, obviously. It's neo-Italianate in design, and the interesting bit from my point of view is the back extension there, which is the servants' wing. Normally the servants were stuffed in any old garrets and attics, but it looks like this family looked after the people.
Yeah, we had a look in it, it looks impressive.
Yeah, so
Why does it have loads of trees?
oh, the Victorians like trees. This one was planted specifically for one reason only, and that's to hide the view into there. That's the ladies' garden, so what the ladies got up to we'll draw a veil over, but that's one of the high points of the restoration game.
In the tree.
But it takes time to do all these things. It was a flower garden, and hopefully in the next couple of years will be again. The Italianate look is all over the garden. I mean, that particular statue is called Bacchanite with a bunch of grapes. The statues in the house were they were all obtained from a sculptor called Casentini, and he had an exhibition which Charles Tellison went to in 1860, and he brought back most of the statues from there, and they formed the bulk of the ones in the house. I think the statues in the garden are sort of John Locke type statues, just to give the Italianate look in the garden. Yeah, I said the house is rigidly symmetric. The Victorians loved their symmetry. Do you see the summer house in the distance there?
Yeah, I think I can.
Yeah. Well, that's an exact replica, actually, of the front porch.
Is it?
Yeah. And this is the only place you can see it from.
They don't look the exact same. The one looks like... Them pillars look the same amount of distance apart, but that one there, the middle, looks like it's bigger than the others, is it?
I'm not sure. That's not just
Camera.
point of view, but yes, there's cameras all around. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, it doesn't have the urns on it, for instance,
Yeah.
but it's...
Close.
There's another camera, I think that's film. On top of that pipe.
Have you visited much English heritage places yourself, have you?
Fair number, but
What's your favourite?
this one.
It's what?
That
After
would
this.
have to be.
What about you, sir?
So, lots of statues are everywhere, and some are in niches, some are out in the open. The thing about the ones in the niches is they turn green just like that.
Do you? You've been to Stonehenge?
Oh yeah.
You've been in the middle of the stones?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yes, I first went to Stonehenge, it was free access.
Oh, yeah.
Walk around in the middle.
They look nice.
This is a very typical Victorian bed. They had this thing called the rule of three. So low growth, medium growth, height, and one or two structural items. So you'll find all the beds are being restored to this sort of idea. The whole point about Brodsworth and its restoration, I think, is that what you see here is what the family had. So where a statue's gone missing, like that particular plinth, we haven't put a marble statue on it just to make it look good. That one in particular, though, has a wire sculpture on. We have this low-level slavery exhibition in the garden. And Peter Tellison was a merchant banker in mid-1700s. He was involved in slave trade, end of story, you know.
Yeah.
So, but the sculptures were done specifically for Brodsworth by a carnival artist called Carl Gabriel. And we actually like them. I mean, just as works of art, they're excellent. The dogs themselves, Italianate greyhounds, they're actually part of the family crest.
How old are they, do you know?
Same age as the house.
Wow.
1860. Oops.
Why does all of the statues look real?
Real.
They're very good statues.
Think it looks real?
Yeah.
Because they're on the family crest, which is why there's so many guarding the house.
Oh, Dad, look.
What?
Bug.
Ladybug. Ladybird.
You'll find lots of those around at the moment.
Mama, mine.
This is the south side of the house, and as I say, it faces south, so all the rooms on this side are really light and airy if you go in. They were when the house was built. They're a bit dark now because the conservation keeps the rooms dark to keep the fabric under way. But from up here you can get a good idea of the actual overriding estate.
High up, innit?
Yeah, English Heritage only owns the 15 acres round the garden. That's actually quite a small, around the house, that's quite a small garden for this size of house. But the wider estate, you can get a bit of a view up here because that is a parkland over that way. And the bigger your parkland, the more money you had, basically. The hill over there used to be flat, and that's where they had their racehorse gallops. And that hill is the slag heap, the reclaimed slag heap of Brodsworth Colliery.
So who owns the rest of the acres of land around here then?
The estate is still held by sort of the family trust.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why don't English Heritage own all of it then?
The reason was Pamela, who got the house, or the last owner in the house, she promised her mother she wouldn't sell it. So they first offered the house to English Heritage, but to National Trust. National Trust wouldn't take it because their policy is to take the whole estate and use the estate to finance the property, the house. So she wouldn't give up the estate. So it was offered to English Heritage, who accepted it, even though it wasn't their sort of core business.
Yeah.
got a roof on for starters.
I know, I'm thinking that, because it's like different in it to the majority of like
Majority,
castles and
yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah, so the wider estate was kept by the family. Can explain that later when we get down to the church if you want. But the interesting thing is the church spire in the distance there. That's in the village of Woodlands, which was built as a model village for the mine workers of Brodsworth Colliery. In 1905, Charles, son of Charles, this was, who was the owner of the house then, was running short of money. So he leased the mining rights under here to form Brodsworth Pit. They built a model village for the mine workers, and he actually paid for that church to be built for the people that lived there. It's not totally altruistic because he asked for a very high spire, so you can see it from up here.
Well, that's in Woodlands, is it?
It's in Woodlands, yeah.
What's it called?
That's Church of All Saints.
Is it? Have you been inside it?
No, never found out how high the spire is either. But yeah, it's quite a... But I'd say that effectively marks the boundary of the estate there.
Wow. I might have a look at my own. See if you can go inside it.
It's a much more actively used church than the one in Brodsworth village. So there is an incumbent there all the time, I think, so it pretty well must be open. It's the west side of the house, and the main feature here is the lawns and the topiary.
What's that?
What?
That.
Looks like you mean the statue?
No, the grass.
It's grass. Well, it's almost grass. We're here on a limestone pavement which runs, a magnesian limestone plateau which runs from roughly Nottingham up towards the North York Moors, and it's got a very specific flora to it. And because nothing was done in this garden since roughly the First World War, we know there's been no herbicides on the lawns. So in fact, they've actually got quite a lot of flora specific to this limestone plateau. Indeed, there is one plant that was found originally in those lawns, which is named after the site, Brodsworth. Unfortunately, I don't know it well enough to recognise it. The lawns have been used for lots of sports like croquet, tennis.
Is that croquet?
That's croquet, yes. Tennis, bowls, but also keeping ornamental chickens. Because one of the owners preferred chickens to lawns, and that's where he kept them.
Wow.
I want to play it.
The house is, as said, was rigidly symmetric. Top to bottom, totally symmetrical. But in fact, that window, and one of those over there, they're not windows, they're actually brick walls.
Love it.
There's a massive fireplace behind those two. And the cobwebs are there not because English Heritage can't be bothered to clean them, but can't get at them.
Oh, it's symmetrical. Can't have been symmetrical inside as well, can it?
No, it's not symmetric inside. It's that particular window, or in fact it's a set of double doors, is the library. And you come out of the library onto this path, and you can see down there a fountain and a bit of colour, but nothing else, because it's blocked by the topiary and the rising ground level. That's typical of this garden. It's laid out like a series of rooms, and you can't see what's in them until you walk up to them and look at them, so that's what we're going to do. During lockdown, we couldn't have all the gardening staff in here, so certain things had to be let go, and one of them was mowing the banks. When they came back after lockdown, they realised there were orchids growing in there, so in fact they've never mown them since.
Wow.
But they mow them once a year. And the grass on that side, it's called the beech lawn, but we call it the wildflower meadow, because summer, basically early summer, It's full of wildflowers and they're all specific to this limestone
Yeah.
pattern. It's only mown once a year with a special mower that scatters seeds.
Is that a maze?
Mm?
Is that a maze?
No, we don't have a maze here. The fountain is actually running at the moment, which is a miracle.
Well, it's not always running, is it?
Well, it's the original Victorian fountain supplied by Cassantini. It's got Victorian pipework, so they don't want to pressure test it and run it at full power. But the time clock that controls it is modern, and every time they reset the clock it skips by 15 minutes, so it's just turned off. So although it's meant to be running when the tour gets here, no fountain. It will be running when we look back at this from the other end of the tour.
So it's just turned its sun off?
Well, there's a time switch that turns it off, yeah.
At least we've seen some of it.
This is the formal garden. Big status symbol, because if you think of the number of staff that you would need to maintain this, there's 24,000 plants in this display.
24,000 plants?
And we only have 2 displays a year, spring and summer. The Victorians would have had 4, one for each season. The layout is all the bed shapes are Victorian bed shapes, and can you see that that bed is mounded, and that was very typical Victorian feature.
What do you mean it's mounted?
Mounded, it's higher in the middle there than
Oh,
it is
is
on
it?
the edge. You can just about see down there.
Yeah.
And
No, no.
I'm not a plantsman. If you want to know what the plants are, you'll have to look at the blackboard. But, oh, I know those. Yeah,
I think there's tennis inside the
Is there?
just a few. I think they've cleaned it out recently. So we have 2 displays a year, and every time you come here you'll never see the same display again, because one of our 6 full-time gardeners will get the opportunity to design the display.
One and take all the plants out and move them in a different place?
Well, they're taken out and composted actually.
What do you mean composted?
They're
Killed?
Killed, yeah.
Yeah.
Put in a compost heap and used to
Make some more
create
compost.
soil improver.
Well, that's a waste, isn't it? They could sell them or give them to someone, couldn't they?
The trouble is that these bedding plants will die when you get the first frost. They won't overwinter
Oh, yeah.
anyway. And when the bulbs are put in, which is the spring one, then the bulbs don't come true each year. They're not necessarily the same colour. So when you're trying to do a colour scheme, it doesn't work, shall we just say.
So when's it going to be next display?
The next display is coming in, they're going to start on it next week. So, the plants are delivered on Monday, and then they'll start planting come Tuesday. We have about 40 volunteers who help with the replanting of this.
You'll need a lot, won't you?
Yeah.
Do you help with it as well?
No, I don't. I'm basically a person who wanders around the gardens talking to people.
Is that your main job, is it?
Yeah, it's. I've got 2.5 acres of my own garden, which I don't do anything with.
You've got
so
2.5 acres of your own garden?
Yeah.
How big? I don't even. How big's an acre? Like,
Oh dear, now is it?
I don't really understand it. I know they're obviously big.
It's an acre. It's something like, is it 3/4 of a football pitch roughly? Standard size football pitch.
1 acre's of 3/4 of a football pitch.
Yeah,
It's quite big then, isn't it? If you've got 2.5 of them in your garden.
yeah. This whole garden here is 15 acres.
Do you go up to there on the tour, up to that
Yeah,
thing?
we
Do you?
can do, or we can give it a miss.
Yeah, I'd rather see everything. So I dropped on today because it's the teacher's training day today, so it's a good time to bring him somewhere like this, you know,
Yeah.
because if I come tomorrow it's Going to be rammed a bit, isn't it? Well,
It could
hell of a
well
lot,
be, yeah.
hell of a lot busier than what it
It's
is
very
on a Friday.
pleasant today. Mind you, I like it in all seasons. So,
What's it like in winter over there then? Do we still have plants in winter and stuff?
they'll have the spring bedding ready coming up, but it obviously won't be very colourful. Now I like this particular yew ball here. It's a very plain bit of topiary, but when you see the trunk of the tree that's under there, you realise that that tree is probably older than the cedar on the front lawn,
Is
at
it?
300 years.
What, do they not grow? Do they stop growing taller then, do they?
Well, that's been cut.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I mean they can grow massive, but so that's just been cut into a ball.
Looks good, like, doesn't it? How do we get up there to do that then? Do you have like a cherry picker? or
We
something?
have a cherry picker, yes, but the Victorians would have done it on ladders and with hand shears. That's not fake. That's ruckus.
Why do you think it's fake? They look plastic.
It's a very old
Because
plant.
this.
Yeah,
Guess
There's-
what?
there's a leaf growing out of the middle of the leaf.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, in there between the two is the leaves of the flower.
And leaves on supposed to have that thing in.
Yeah.
That one does.
Afternoon. How are you on the plants?
Is that
Not very good. Why?
There's one there. The name I can't quite remember what it is. There's one over there with sort of roundish, slightly heart-shaped leaves.
In the fern garden, or
No, it's just it's there. You just see the top of it there, beyond these.
that's real?
yes,
Is it?
Yeah, they're all real.
I'm afraid I don't know.
Oh, right.
Real?
And,
Except for that
the
one.
gardening staff go off it too.
That one's fake.
It'll come to me.
This one's real.
yeah,
Oh,
no
I've
worries.
run plant signs on it.
No problem. All right, cheers.
Okay.
Is this one real?
Yes, everything you see is real. Not only is it real, but it's plants that the Victorians would have used here. So, the path continues up that way, but it also acts as a border between the formal garden, which is we've just come from, and the less formal bit, which we're going to. This bed was restored while I was here. The head gardener, it used to look like that. The head gardener reckoned he had a week with not too much on, so he completely split that out and redid it.
That brick.
This is the Alpine garden. To me, a rockery like this is just a heap of stone with some nice plants in it. But the Victorians treated it as an engineering problem, and there's actually vertical drainage pipes in it to keep the water levels in the soil just right for the plants they're growing. So a lot of work's been done on this over the winter.
Wanna come on the bridge?
So what makes you want to do this part of it? Because if you don't know about the plants and stuff, are you interested in plants and stuff?
Sort of. I mean, I'm more interested in the history of the plants.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to learn something about the plants as I do it. But if you want a proper plant tour, you have to get one of the gardeners to do it, and that costs you.
Does it? How much does that cost?
I've no idea.
I'm not really into plants.
I'm on the bridge.
Same as you, just into the history of
Yeah.
the place more than...
Let's go over here.
I think we're going to go up here.
What are they for there? Them stones?
That's the pet cemetery. We'll
There's a pet
go
cem-
there in a minute.
No way.
After that, we go through there.
That's going to be interesting. Never seen a pet cemetery before.
Victorians were very fond of pet cemeteries. Have you ever been down to Rufford Abbey? Down south, bits further south of here, down the A1.
What's it called?
Rufford Abbey.
Never heard of it, I don't think. I don't. Is it part English heritage?
No, but it's another sort of old ruin. But they've got a pet cemetery in there that's got horses in it and everything else.
Oh.
Here we are. This is the highest point in the garden. It's an artificial mound, And this is where the family would have tea and scones brought to them.
Want to sit and watch all the workers doing all the grass.
Probably, yes. Be a nice life. The hedge here is a bit of a problem to me. Probably put in by English Heritage because of health and safety,
Yeah.
you know. But it does stop you sitting there and really
Yeah,
looking at the
it's
garden.
shame, isn't it?
But I think it'll be sorted out sooner rather than later. It's just been allowed to grow too much for.
Yeah.
There's cows.
Yeah, there are lots. But I say it's the highest point in the garden, but you still can't see everything. It's all still a series of rooms that.
Look, there's like loads of ladybirds on the pipes.
Pipes. Columns, not pipes.
It's actually said that when the garden was first laid out, you could see York Minster in that direction,
Could you?
about 30 miles away.
You've been to York Minster? We went to top of it a couple of months ago.
Oh right, it's a few years since.
It's an amazing church, isn't it? One of the best ones I've been to.
Yeah. Yeah, as you say, it's an amazing church. Yeah, so even though it's the highest point, you still can't see everything in the garden. You still only get tasters of it.
Can you not get to the top because it looks like it's a balcony you could lean on the top, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. It's a copy of the front of the house, but without the steps to get up there. And I don't know if there's anything in that niche, because in the front porch that's got gas lights in it.
Do they like to watch these?
Hmm?
Do they like to watch these?
No, they like to watch people working in their garden.
There's some on my face. Who would like it? Let's go over the bridge.
Ooh, you can go over the bridge. We're going down to see the pets.
And after we'll see the pets.
Graves of the family pets. They're all dogs except for Polly the parrot, who's in that corner over there. Mostly terriers, I think. But there's also a Pomeranian. But Coop, that one, there's a drawing of Coop in the morning room, and painted by one of Charles Tellison's oldest children. I don't know which one.
room? Can you describe it when you go into it?
Yes, the first room you come
On your left?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I think I've seen it, like a Jack Russell type of dog.
I don't know if that one's a Jack, but it's certainly a terrier. It's on the, as you go into the room, it's the one on the wall to the left.
You haven't walked in the building on your left, on it first. I think it was first, is it first room on your left?
First room, yeah.
They were like on your left.
That's it.
Yeah, we were like right on your left. Yeah,
That's Coop.
I got a good look at that on camera as well.
Oh right, yeah, that's Coop.
Wow.
So I think he's the oldest one I know in here. But if you look round them all, you'll find that most of them have a painting in the hall somewhere.
Is this the parrot one?
No, Parrot Polly.
Who were Binky, Pippi?
Binky and Pippi were Sylvia Grant Dalton's last dogs. She was the last lady who lived here. And when she died, they survived her. But
Poppy.
brought back and buried
Is that
her.
Poppy?
No.
The parrot?
Where's the parrot?
Polly. There.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
this one. Polly.
Not a very long-lived parrot, but
Not long lived, what, 26 years?
yeah,
How long do they normally live? About?
live up to 60 or 70.
I didn't know that.
I saw a parrot cage in there. I did see a parrot cage in the house. That big house. I saw one.
Do you know all of them? And if I asked you about any of them, would you?
No,
No.
I don't do inside the house actually,
I
which is
saw.
why I don't. I know Coop. because my wife is a house steward. You've seen her in the dining room.
Oh, your
today.
wife's in there, is she?
Yeah. So she also does garden tours, which is how I know a lot of what I do.
I saw a parrot cage, so it must be Popper's cage.
What's in there then?
That we think was an ice house, but an ice house should go deep down into the ground.
Yeah.
But that's got a flat floor. But archaeology investigations over there reveal some rectangular lakes, and you don't get lakes on limestone unless you make them. And they're just the right sort of shape for cutting ice to go into an ice house.
So what's it like? It's a little square, tiny...
It's just not, it's almost identical, it is identical in size to the
Is it?
building. It's almost as if they built it as a tower and then built the mound around it.
Wow.
Slides around there.
But it's got a flat floor in it now. But with no documentary evidence, interestingly, of what it was.
Wow.
The croquet club keep their equipment in there.
I saw Polly's cage.
Did you?
Yeah, inside.
What, in that room where it had that mask and stuff? That one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go on the way.
This way, Logan.
Bye.
We haven't been over that bridge.
Oh, I'm afraid you might have to go over that a bit later.
Why is it not part of the tour?
Not part of the tour, no. You can't go over every path. There's a whole maze of paths. And the kids love it.
A whole maze.
Well, it's not a maze, but it's just difficult to find your way around for the few times you visit.
What's that thing there?
We call it the eye catcher. It's a folly, basically. It's never been a building. Just looks like a building. Just interesting. There's a viewing platform in front of it, but health and safety says we can't go up there.
What do you mean a viewing platform in front of it?
Well, it's just a flat place where you can stand on and look down
you're not
the
allowed.
target range. A bit over this side is the fern garden, or fern dell. Victorians were mad on ferns, sufficiently mad that they picked...
What's a fern?
That's a fern.
Oh, the tree?
Yeah,
The plant, whatever it is.
yeah. They picked them all in the south of England, and there are no native ferns left. But this actually garden is on a watery theme. Can you see the waves of stone?
Yeah.
You've got water level of the bottom there, stepping stones. And then, in fact, there's a small water feature over there which gives you the sound too. This was completely derelict when the H took over. So to rebuild it, they basically had to take it apart and start again. But we've always had photographs over the whole lifespan of Brodsworth Halls. And in fact, Charles Tellerson's son Peter was a keen photographer. So we actually had the photographs to rebuild it.
Yeah, wow.
Which was useful. We're basically now in the quarry proper. This was part of the Georgian garden, but I don't think the stone was used for anything other than probably building, farm building type stuff. It's not very good quality. Not like the quarries in Wandsworth, which is fairly near your part of it.
It's the maze.
Could say. We've got about 40 volunteers here. One of the volunteers is a dry stone waller. So we've set up a sort of maintenance volunteer group, and he's teaching the others how to dry stone wall. So we're getting some of the walls put back together, which is nice.
How do we do the dry stone wall? Has it got to be so thick? It can't got to be so wide, surely. You can't just do it that width. One single
You
piece,
can,
you?
yeah. Well, again, that's
You'd expect-
holding a bank up. But
Well, you got to smash them into shape, have you? Or just look for ones that are the right shape?
basically, if I don't do dry stone walling. I've seen a lot of it done. And you pick up a stone and you find somewhere it'll fit. Once you pick a stone up, you don't put it down again except into the wall. It's quite a skill. One thing that's changed here is that when they investigated they repointed the eye catcher, and when they did that, the head gardener was looking at the banks below and realised that instead of being an ivy covered bank, that bit at the bottom there, it was actually all one area. So you come down from the summer house and you can either walk in front of the eye catcher or walk down this side over the bridge, or straight down the middle.
You have to wait.
Yeah. Not getting tired of my talk, are you?
You have to hold it in, Logan.
So of it down in the quarry bottom now, and the statues that were down here are all terracotta, not marble. That's one of Carl Gabriel's quite interesting ones. It's all the products of a plantation. But the main feature here is that tree.
Wow, it's a nice tree.
It's a lovely tree. It's actually a giant redwood, a sequoia. They're mass and status symbols because they're only seen by Western explorers in 1853. So to have one in your garden in 1860 was scream money, basically. They're also an interesting tree. That bark is felt was soft, and where they live in the States, they get forest fires run through quite regularly.
Yeah, I bet they do.
And the bark acts as an insulator,
Does it?
so the tree doesn't get damaged by them. But also the cones are heat sensitive, and they open and drop their seeds when a fire's been through.
Oh, wow.
So you've wiped out the undergrowth with a fire, and then you put seeds on it.
Like it's evolved to know.
What could be better? Yeah.
Wow.
Nice beach.
Is there any English heritage things close that you recommend going to see?
Have you been to Roche Abbey?
Yeah.
Roche Abbey and Conisbrough Castle.
Yeah, them two, yeah.
Those are the two interesting.
Have you been to Fountains Abbey and Rivo Abbey?
Yes.
They're impressive, aren't they?
They're very impressive, yeah. I mean, I just like historical places.
You've been abroad to any like historic places?
I've been abroad many times. I can't think of any historic places.
I've been to places like the Great Wall of China and...
Oh, I have actually, yes.
You've been there, have you?
I have actually, yes.
You have to wait.
I should, yes. I mean,
Where?
I went, actually, yes. I mean,
In Beijing? Or a different city you went to?
No, I went to Beijing.
That's where I seen the Great Wall.
Yeah, it's lovely. But,
Petra in Jordan. You seen that?
no, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's what I want to get.
Egyptian pyramids?
No, not yet.
You must want to go there, would you?
I've been to Peru and seen all the Inca remains.
You've been to Machu Picchu, have you?
Yeah.
How did you go about that then?
Well, we went on a tour. I mean, we just went on a guided tour.
So you flew to Lima from London, did
That's
you?
it, exactly so.
Then flew to
Then
Cusco.
then we drove down the coast to Nazca, flew over the Nazca lines, which is a heart-wrenching thing to do.
Yeah, how did you get to Machu Picchu on the train?
Yeah.
And then,
Well, no, we then drove up to Lake Titicaca and the coach, and then moved to train over the Altiplano.
did you climb any of the two mountains at Machu Picchu?
No.
There's Haina Picchu and something else, isn't there? There's two big things you can climb.
No, basically when we went there were limited numbers of people who could go up them.
What year were it? You went?
2000 or something.
Around 2000. Yeah, I want to do all the 7 new wonders of the world. I've got Taj Mahal and Machu Picchu left to do.
Well,
Hoping to get to Taj Mahal end of this year, possibly December or January.
God, you're doing well then. This particular garden's not Victorian. This is Edwardian, and it's basically called Art Deco. That's what I'm told. So it's Art Deco. It's basically laid out as a tapestry. But one thing that's really quite nice, there's a peg hole there which is full of cement. But all over these stones there are peg holes, and in fact it turns out they're the roofing tiles from the old Georgian house.
Oh, yeah.
So when this was only restored a couple of years back, just pre-lockdown, and they found 8% of the stone just under the turf, so when they're poking around, all they had to do was relay it.
Wow.
It's we have a photo dated 1910, so we know roughly that was when it was put in. We've got a photo here of the old Georgian Hall, and those windows across the top there, they recycled into the servants' quarters.
That one's demolished now, is it?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely nothing remains.
Whereabouts are that compared to the other one? On the same site, or?
No, it's down by the kiddies' playground.
Is it?
Yeah, we end up past there on tour. Again, that was a terracotta statue. It's in bits and held restored. But when I say that there's a very large hole in the side here, and there's a very large hole in the eye catcher. When I say there was a detachment of signals officers here during the Second World War and they used it for their target range, I think we can
No way.
we can explain what might have happened to the statue. Indeed, there's actually a tale of one of the lady gardeners being missed by a very close ricochet.
What's this building then?
This is the target house. It's again built out of bits of the Georgian house. It's a Swiss chalet type design, and it basically reflects where the family came from, because they escaped from France and lived in Switzerland for a bit. And Peter Tellison came from Switzerland to the UK.
A lot of bugs about, isn't there?
Yeah, that wall is covered in ladybirds. I haven't seen so many since I last looked in my house.
What's in there?
A bit of a display. I don't know if you're interested in any particular sports, but this was obviously their archery range, and the rules of a lot of sports were being formulated in Victorian times, and archery was very popular then. And they did target archery over 60, 80 and 100 yards, but this is 180 yards long. It's far too long. But there was another type of archery called flag or clout archery, which they shot surprisingly over 180 yards.
Wow.
So looks like that's probably what they were doing here. The nice thing about that is that to shoot that distance, you've got to raise the bow much higher than for target archery.
Yeah.
And when you do that, the target is usually obscured by your hand and forearm. So whether that's still practiced today, there's often things like a church spire in the distance, which gives you something to aim at.
Yeah.
So is that why they put the eye catcher at the end there?
Maybe.
It's interesting.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Why we call the centre of target a bullseye? Medieval archers used the eye of sockets of bulls' skulls as targets. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's some tree roots, aren't there?
That's magnificent, yes. You can guess that's very old. Walking through here a couple of weeks ago, it was a bit windier and the and the trees were creaking up there. We got through it very quickly.
Some ladybirds on the back of your jacket.
I know, they like yellow high-vis jackets. This is now the formal rose garden, and all the metalwork here is Victorian. And like everywhere else in the garden, the plants are ones Victorians would have used. We had a thing called box blight go through and kill all the box hedging that we've got. So when I first started, the paths on that side were copied on this side. And you can see where there's an arch up here. But that's not on the original Victorian garden. So when the box blight was replanted, they took the opportunity to take the extra paths out, so it now is Victorian, back to the Victorian design. The pergola contains obviously climbing roses, but nice grapevines and honeysuckles.
What, do they get the grapes off there when they've grown to it?
They're not particularly nice grapes. They've also got pips in.
This is like a maze.
I've got to the time when I don't like pips. The herbaceous border there is put in by English Heritage. The boundary between the garden and what's left owned by the estate is basically just the other side of that hedge. So I think that hedge was put in to block out that house or a similar eyesore, which is not part of the English
Well,
heritage.
that's someone's living house, is it?
I don't know whether that's someone's living house or an estate office. In fact, 3 weeks ago, one of the limbs fell off that tree, and it was sufficiently big that it damaged the hedge there and the garden.
On
Can you see
today,
our beehives?
honey bees at Ruth. Please don't come close.
That's right.
Too close.
We used to have more of them, and closer, but one of them had the temerity to sting the garden supervisor, so they got moved back a bit. They're owned by one of the volunteers here. This is the informal rose garden. This has got more like dog roses rather than species roses in it. It's got a lovely collection of flowers in here during the year. So it starts off with aconites and snowdrops, followed by tulips, wild garlic.
What does that smell like?
What's all them on there then? It's soaking wet, aren't they?
That's condensation dew, basically. They don't normally have quite that much on.
What does it smell like?
Well, I don't think it smells of anything particularly. The wild garlic does that. We had an amazing display of autumn crocuses this year. They've done an awful lot of restoration work on this over this last winter, and it's taking a bit of time to bed down, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to get music to the tree.
Well, funnily enough, we're coming now to the outdoor toilet, the outdoor privy.
Is it working?
No. No, this was for the use of family and visitors, not for the use of gardeners.
Toilet? Is this the toilet?
No, it's an old one, don't work.
It's a very old one. Plenty of space single occupancy, but plenty of space if you've got a criminal. And a blocked hole to stop young lads using it.
How'd that go? Just a big hole into the ground?
Well, it's not that big a hole.
Oh, would it get emptied and stuff?
That was via the servants' entrance, which is just there.
Wow.
Nice thing about this particular restoration was it was all done in-house by the gardening team. No outside contractors called in.
Why did they block the toilet?
Is this an old one?
It's an old one, it's not in use anymore. I had fun and games in B&Q once when my son was about his age, heading for one of the display toilets. Caught in time. Go down this way. So,
I
here we
think
are.
toilets are that way.
I think you're right. Here we are back on the path I said with the boundaries before, formal and informal. Still with marble statues. And that one in fact is the Muse of Comedy. That's the only one I can actually recognise. The formal gardens up there. Fountain working.
Oh yeah, I just realised where we are now. Yeah, the
Yeah.
fountain.
House is through there. And this is the beach lawn where all the wildflowers grow. There's nothing to be seen at the moment because they've just been mown. It's, over down there is the stable block for the Georgian house. We do own it, but it's where all the garden team have their equipment, so it's not open to the tour, unfortunately. During late May, early June, this is just full of orchids. If you get a chance to come back here, it's,
I'll probably let my pass run out. I don't think I'll renew it because I've done everything really I wanted to do.
fair enough, yeah. I mean, it's
I don't mind going camping in Cornwall again next year though. There's a couple of English heritage things down there that look really good.
well, I mean, a lot of
What's that castle called? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's got
Tintagel.
yeah.
Yeah, they put a land bridge across the gap. It's taken a bit of the fun out of it.
Have you been up?
Not for many, many years. And,
Where's the toilet?
we're getting there. The old Georgian house was roughly where that pine tree is straight ahead.
Was there any ruins of
No,
it?
absolutely nothing.
No.
It was completely dug out. There might be a mounting block for getting on the horses, but that was it.
Probably might see some foundations or
No,
something.
doesn't seem to be anything there.
Wow.
But it's on the old estate
Toilet's over
ground. Yeah.
Oh, is that the end or is there some more to...
Well, this is basically the end. I mean, this is my favourite view. If you want to send him off, the toilets are just up that path there. But basically, this is a church that we heard strike. It's pre-Norman. Very nice to look inside if you can get in.
Have you been in before?
Yeah.
Have you?
It's opened by volunteers from this site, usually on a bank holiday. But it is a working church and it's not owned by the family. Or never was owned.
Oh, is there a
by
big
the
fence around this side of it then,
Yes.
is there?
family. Yeah. But
Here, Logan.
so, but that's where all the Tellisons are buried. So, Peter Tellison's in the church. Charles is in the graveyard. So is Pamela, the last lady. Sorry, Sylvia, the last lady to live here, and Pamela, who gave it to English Heritage.
Wow.
But also in there is the head gardener, Samuel Taylor, who's
The head garden's in there.
he's actually quite close to the family. Again, looks like a mark of respect. by the family.
Well, so I've got all the gravestones to all the people
Yes.
quite clear of you?
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I say, if you've got the guidebook, it's interesting to walk round.
So how do you get round then? Does it take ages?
You can get, I don't know if you can get in through the village, but if
What,
you
drive out and...
go out of the drive, turn left again, and then there's a driveway up to the church, but it's marked up as a private road.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically, with the sort of end of the family, that's the end of the tour too. Which
Thank you very much.
also conveniently ends with the toilets and the cafe.
So that's the end of the tour. Brilliant.
Thank you, Pete. That was a very good tour. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button